It's cool you still talking.
I'd like to call to order the Westmont Village Board meeting of June 29, 2023, to order at 6 o'clock p.m. and ask Clerk Simsky for a roll call, please.
Mayor Gunter.
Here.
The clerk's here. Trustee Barker.
Here.
Trustee Brady.
Yeah, here.
Trustee Guzzo. Here. Trustee Little. Here. Trustee Nero.
Here.
Trustee Simonovich is absent tonight. Attorney Zemanek.
Here.
Henderford, are you here?
You're fine.
I thought he was.
Yeah, he is.
Okay. Assistant Manager Parker.
Here.
Village Manager May.
Here.
We got Attorney
All right, well,
Zemanek, so.
Would everybody please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. Welcome, everyone, and I'd ask Chief, is there anybody here for open forum? Seeing nobody, I'll close open forum, and we're going to move on to reports. And again, I've said this numerous times, one of my favorite meetings is when we get to swear in new officers. So, Chief, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mayor, and of course it is our pleasure to swear in two of our newest officers. And before I bring them up to introduce, I would like to always commend the Fire and Police Commission for their hard work in the hiring process. They put in countless hours. They work tirelessly to make sure that Westmont has the highest caliber quality individuals that become police officers in our community. Tonight, Commissioner Tom Mulhern is in attendance, and certainly their work continues as we have 4 more spots to fill. Our list was just established within the last week, and they will be getting into the interview phase within the next couple of weeks. So always hard work from our Fire and Police Commission. So 2 officers that we're swearing in tonight, Officer Miranda Hartel and Officer Jake Eisenbeis, if they can come forward. Way in the back in the hallway, hiding. So come on up, Mayor, and Miranda. Cheers. Stand here.
Stand facing. All right. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Miranda Hartel,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
the laws of DuPage County,
the laws of DuPage County,
the Westmont Village Code of Ordinances,
the Westmont Village Code of Ordinances,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties for the office of police officer
the duties for the office of the police officer
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
As per tradition, we're going to have the pinning of their badges, and pinning Officer Eisenbeis will be his dad, Scott. And Scott, you're coming up by yourself, right? Yeah. And then for Officer Hartel, Father Dan and Mom Sherry. Come on up. Both, well, we have one retired police officer, and an active police officer. So this is the second generation of police officers in the family. So, proud to have families pinning right now.
Congratulations, welcome.
Congratulations.
Thank you, ma'am.
Congratulations, glad to have you.
Congratulations. Welcome.
Welcome again.
Congratulations.
Congratulations and welcome.
Congratulations.
And also per tradition, as I make every new police officer do, is address the board with prepared remarks. So we debated in the hallway, and we're going by seniority, so Officer Hartel will lead off, because that's what you picked.
Good afternoon, everybody. I just wanted to thank the members of the Westmont Police Department for accepting me into their team. I've met some very wonderful coworkers, made a lot of friends along the way so far. I also wanted to thank my family for standing with me and helping me out with everything, and for allowing me to help the community and when they need me. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Good.
Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to say thank you to the board themselves for giving me the chance to work with Westmont Police Department. So far, I've only been here for a short 6 months with Academy and then working with people. And the people I've actually met and worked with so far have been great. They're great instructors and they're always willing to help you learn. And I just want to thank my family. I've always grown up into law enforcement and I have a great role model to follow. And so I'm just following the path of my dad, and I hope I can do great things with that. Thank you.
You stand here for a second. So as we conclude the presentation, short on experience and heavy on positive attitude, and really both officers have displayed nothing but positivity as they started their careers, long, prosperous careers with the Westmont Police Department, and we're really happy to have them. We're going to retire back to the police station for cake pops and coffee, so if anybody wants to. What's that?
Not here?
Not here, no, sorry. We got to go back. And I'm glad the street fair is closed tonight, just so we can, navigate north. So.
Isn't there a former police officer in the audience?
There's one, yes, right over there.
Yeah.
Former Officer Michelle, number 115. Yes, personal friends with Officer Eisenbeiss. So,
Well, thanks, Chief.
thank you very much.
And congratulations.
Well, now everybody's leaving. I know. It emptied out the room.
You continue.
All right, as we'll move on on our agenda. First item under reports is mine. The Taiwanese summer camp event. The Park District is coordinating a summer camp program for students visiting from Taiwan. They will be in Westmont for about 3 weeks, starting today. If anyone is interested in supporting this program, they can contact Bob Fleck at the Park District. And this is just another one of our sister city events. Several weeks ago, we had a very lovely performance at Westmont High School from a touring group from Taiwan. And this is just another example of our good relationship with our sister city. 4th of July is this Tuesday, next Tuesday. The Park District will host their annual Independence Day celebration at Taiwan Park. Started in 2000, and now we're 23 years later. Be sure to come out and see this wonderful fireworks. The complete schedule is on the Park District website. Again, we want to give a warm goodbye to Kevin Carey, who is Superintendent of Community Unit School District 201. Today's his last day. He's retired, and he's been a big asset to this community. So we want to just thank him for all the leadership and guiding the growth and success of the 201, and wish him the best. So I had an opportunity to see him yesterday at a chamber meeting, and he's been a huge asset for us. And I'll turn to Clerk Sinski.
Okay, I just have a couple announcements. village offices will be closed on Tuesday, July 4th. So don't come here because we won't be here. And community garage sales will be August 4th to the 6th, and you can sign up now via the village website. That's all.
Good. Trustee Nero, Public Works Committee.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few items tonight. Just to give everybody a heads up, we do have the dates for the scheduled train crossing closures. They're one-day work closures. It's going to be July 8th, August 26th, and September 16th. There'll be more info posted on the village website. And if anybody's interested on construction updates, obviously you can reach out to any one of us, but there's a lot of information on our website. I know the Public Works team, as well as our communications department, have been putting a lot of time in keeping that updated, so feel free to check that out anytime. And then lastly, our water quality report for last year, it's something that you have to do every year as a community, was published on our website. Pretty interesting stuff. If you're interested, check it out. It's kind of neat to see what's in your water. And that's all I have, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll give Trustee Simonovich's report for Police and Public Safety Committee. The next meeting will be July 27th at 4:30 right here at Village Hall. National Night Out. This year's event will take place a little different now. We're going to go to Ty Warner Park on August the 1st. There will be law enforcement vehicles, bounce house, pictures with McGruff, refreshments, and more. I think we outgrew the police station with the amount of people that attend. So please come out August the 1st. And the Special Olympics golf fundraiser, the first ever, will be held on September the 15th. There are still openings for golfers. Contact Sergeant Mike Weebler at 630-981-6373 for details. And that's all she has. Trustee Brady, Community Development.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Community Development Committee meeting will be August 10th at 4:30 at the Village Hall. The final draft of the Downtown and Center program is scheduled for tonight's board meeting. The next Planning and Zoning Commission meeting is Wednesday, July 12th. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Very good. Trustee Johanna Guzzo, Fire Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our next Fire Public Safety Committee meeting will be September 7th, 4:30 here at Village Hall. Everyone is invited to attend. Fireworks and summer fire safety. An article regarding summer fire safety has been published on the website. We encourage everyone to check it out and be safe. And see it, report it, do not hesitate, call 911. A new Village of Westmont marketing campaign was launched in this past month, encouraging citizens to call 911 to report emergencies. Whether the situation be fire, medical, criminal, or otherwise, do not hesitate. Be safe and call 911. And finally, I want to do it's usually a monthly, every couple months, public service announcement. When you hear the sirens, when you see the lights, please pull to the right. I cannot tell you how many times I see it, and I think I see it more because growing up, that's all I was told was, you better get over, because if I see you're not pulled over, you're going to get into trouble. And that's all I have,
Well,
Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll turn over here to Trustee Barker, Environmental Improvement Committee in Westmont First.
Thank you, Mayor. The next EIC meeting will be in August 7th at 5:30 here in Village Hall. We're taking a break for July and going to spend a couple of nights down at the street fair. And then we have a Dark Skies contest and grant. Details for the grant program will be announced soon. The goal is to encourage residents and businesses to embrace dark sky strategies on their property to reduce and eliminate unnecessary light pollution. And also, there was a notification that mosquito spraying is going to occur the entire community tonight. I saw the public relations stuff that went out, so hopefully others did too. And residents can sign up to receive their own notice regarding that spraying and when it's going to occur by going to the www.clarkportal.com. And I believe it's a text message that would go out. Okay. That is all. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And Trustee Little, Administration and Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mayor. The next meeting of the Administration Finance Committee will be held on July 13th, 4:30, right here in Village Hall. Taste of Westmont. This year, the Taste of Westmont is scheduled for the week after the 4th of July. The Taste will run from July 13, 14, 15, and 16. The main stage headline acts include a national touring Elton John tribute band, the #1 Eagles tribute band in the Midwest, a Journey tribute band, a Tom Petty tribute, the Muddy Waters Blues tribute, and a whole lot more. Details are listed in the Westmont Special Events website at westmontevents.com. Also, Taste of Westmont, we still need volunteers, so anybody that's interested at all, please come to our website and sign up at westmontevents.com, or you can call the office at 630-829-9378 for more information. We actually have some local performers on the main stage this year. As we strive to support all things Westmont, we've created the 15 Minutes of Fame Spotlight on our Taste of Westmont main stage, and this year we're going to feature Haley Grimm on Friday night and Connie Seifer on Saturday night, both of whom are Westmont residents and have been a part of local events for a number of years. In fact, Haley graduated from Westmont High School and has been studying music in Nashville for the past several years. She's the daughter of Stephanie Grimm, who is a lieutenant on our fire department. Be sure to see Haley on the main stage on Friday, July 14, and again on the south stage on Saturday, July 15th. Cruising nights, well, they're in full swing, except for tonight. Y'all didn't caught in because of the weather and because of the air. But we will continue it on through August the 31st. Details can be found at westmontevents.com. And believe it or not, Cruising Nights has made WGN News Radio again. Westmont Special Events was live on WGN Radio this past Sunday to promote Westmont Cruising Nights on the radio program titled On the Road with Dane Neal. Dane is a big fan of our car show, and once again, he named Westmont Cruising Nights as the best weekly summer car show in the Chicagoland area. Mayor, that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
And are you giving a special award at the Taste this year,
We
right?
are giving a special award this year.
Will it be on Friday? You don't know?
I don't know that they've decided which night it's going
All
to
right,
be,
but
but
it's
we are
making
definitely going to be
memories,
doing
so
a
good.
presentation.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on the agenda, items to be removed from the consent agenda. Any board member see any? If not, I'd ask Manager May to please read the consent agenda.
Tonight, on the consent agenda, we begin with Village Board minutes. Board to consider approving the minutes of the Village Board meeting held June 15, 2023. Next is Finance Ordinance Number 5 in the amount of $1,882,234.05. We have several purchase orders. First purchase order is Monroe Truck Equipment, $73,836. This is for the build-out portion of the 2026 International that we've just recently ordered. Exter and Woodman Incorporated, $60,000. This is a GIS consulting services. It's a simultaneous payment, so it's also included in the finance ordinance. General Refrigeration Service, $75,000. It's for HVAC replacement at the Westmont Center. Next is Village of Addison, $490,430. This was for the Addison Consolidated Dispatch Center. This is for fire dispatch and alarm services and the hardware maintenance fees. The next purchase order is also Village of Addison, $361,510, and these are the annual amount for the dispatch services for PD. Total of those purchase orders was $1,060,776, and then the total of the purchase orders together with finance ordinance number 5 is $2,943,010.05, and that's the entire consent agenda.
Do we have a motion to approve as read?
Motion to approve is read, Little.
Second, Nero.
Motion made and second. Any comments? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Little.
Yes.
Trustee Brady.
Yes.
Trustee, Barker, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Trustee Guzzo.
Yes.
Trustee Nero.
Yes.
Move on to new business, establishment of a downtown incentive program. Board to consider ordinance approving a downtown incentive program for the DIP for the Village of Westmont Central Business District. and I've got Deputy Director Henner Fine, but I do have to say, we've discussed this in committee, and I'm looking forward to this presentation so we can get this thing going. I know trustees Barker and Marie Johanna Guzzo served on this committee with you, so.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Board. I was going to try to go really fast so everyone could get to the car show, but I think they canceled it so I
So
could
you got all
keep a
night.
captive audience. So I will go fast. I'm not going to cover every detail because we did discuss this at CDC. We have been in this process for at least half a year. We have lots of contributors, including 2 trustees you mentioned. We had 2 folks from Planning and Zoning that sat on it. We had a consultant that we used, and several staff members as well. So, what is the Downtown Incentive Program? There's a purpose to it. And it's a program to provide financial incentives in the form of grants to promote investment in properties and businesses. We're looking to encourage significant impacts to existing buildings with physical improvements, to enhance the viability of established businesses, and encourage and attract new businesses. And ultimately, we wanted to create a flexible program that can be tailored annually with budgets, targets, and community needs. And that's done through several ways. There's multiple funding levels that we'll be proposing in the form of what we call a tier. There's different match percentages. So the old programs were a flat 50% match. We have a difference in the way we match projects so that we're funding better projects at better percentages and make them better projects. Annually, we can change those match targets to actually target improvements. So if one year we decide that there's something we want done in the downtown, let's say that was fire safety and fire suppression, we could target a different match so that we bring in applicants that have been holding off on those projects because there wasn't enough funding available. Grants are intended to fund dynamic projects in order to get maximum awards, but can also benefit single things, single line items. And then, as I mentioned, there was match. Awards generally can get up to 50% of match, and I'll go into a little bit more detail. And then this is a replacement for the former facade and life safety grant program that was put on hold in approximately May of 2020. If you remember, we were able to fund up to $5,000 for a facade grant and up to $3,000 for a life safety. We're going much further with this grant program. So who's eligible? So eligibility is first defined by a border, and that is a central business district TIF boundary. We thought we should use a boundary that we've already established for the TIF. However, that boundary includes B1 properties, some B2 properties up on Chicago Avenue, some M1 properties down Quincy, and then some residential properties along Quincy and Burlington. We always give preference to B1 properties. And then this is defined in the program. It is for commercial and commercial and mixed use projects, not any residential. So although the boundary does cover some residential, the intention is not to fund residential projects. Who can apply? Applicants can be the property owner that wants to make improvements to the property, and or a business owner, as long as they have the permission of the property owner for the improvements that are going to be installed. All projects should meet the intents of the design guidelines. So that's not just our commercial design guidelines that were adopted in 2013, but we can go as far back as we need to with our Main Street guidelines, which are still an adopted guideline. As I alluded to, we're looking at helping existing development. So that's the look of the exterior buildings. It can address code compliance, such as ADA and fire suppression. It can cover interior improvements, business signage and limited business equipment, parking lot and stormwater improvements. And what's important to note, and this was something we took from the last CDC meeting, is if there are more applications than there is funding available, projects will be scored. So basically, we will have a ranking system to say you've scored high and you get funded versus you did not score as well and you did not get funded. We don't want that scenario, but we need to be prepared for that scenario. So it's a tiered system. And so basically, What is a tiered system, Joe? It's basically, it's three categories of grants. It's small dollar amounts, medium dollar amounts, and large dollar amounts. And we felt that was very important, not only for annual funding, but basically we're creating pots of money. And we don't want one large project to take the entire pot of money for all the small projects. So by divvying up funds into each of those pots, then we can control the grants and who can get them. It also means that we can control if we're going to fund all three or leave some unfunded. So we have budget flexibility, and when we get into the first fiscal year that we want to do this, discuss that in this, we're only intending to do tier 1. We're going to start small. So what is tier 1? Basically, you need to have a minimum $5,000 project cost. And the grant award you could potentially get is $20,000. This is the lowest entry grant for project cost and grant award. The activities target building facade improvements, life safety, ADA, and business signage. And this is really targeting straightforward improvements and single activities. So basically projects that don't need a lot of planning. There's not a lot of upfront planning that you need to do with those. Tier 2 would be the medium size, so a minimum of a $25,000 project cost. I can tell you in today's economy, it's real easy to have a $25,000 project. There you could get up to a maximum of $50,000 grant award. It's a higher project cost threshold with a significant increase in the available funding. We expand the eligible activities to include exterior improvements to parking lots and stormwater facilities. So basically we're going a little bit outside of the building now. And the maximum funding encourages more comprehensive projects. When we get into the scoring and some of those details, you'll see that the more dynamic your project is, the higher funding level you can get, and the higher your score ultimately. Tier 3 would be the largest grants. That would be a minimum $50,000 project cost and a maximum $100,000 grant award. So now we're talking about some really substantial dollars. Those target the multifaceted rehab, renovation, building expansion. It starts getting into eligible activities that now include business-specific assistance, such as business equipment, restaurant equipment. And then looking into the downtown development targets.
And Joe, 50% applies to all these tiers?
It ranges, but it never goes more than 50%.
Okay, thank you.
So, as I stated, each tier, basically with each tier, you have the availability to more things that can be funded. So right now, tier 1 is limited to 4 items: facade, signage, ADA, and life safety. If you look at tier 2, then we start including ADA on the inside. So when I talk about ADA, that's basically your accessibility into the building. That's exterior. ADA inside would be something like you need required bathrooms or something like that. Code compliance. A lot of our buildings are code deficient. So you can start funding some code compliance. And then parking lot and stormwater improvements. When you get to tier 3, which is those really large projects with a large funding, now we're adding other things. Rear entry facade improvements. So we've built some parking lots behind Cass Avenue. We want to encourage businesses to improve those facades so that it makes it welcoming and so people can leave the parking lot and go directly into the rear of the building. Restaurant and other food service or sales equipment and fixtures. So obviously restaurant and retail are some of our targets in the downtown. We can fund some percentage. To answer you, Mr. Mayor, on some of these additional things, we're not getting close to 50%, but we are putting some funds toward it. And then finally, some other business equipment. Ineligible things. So what we don't want to pay for is normal maintenance. Awnings with signage. Why do we not want to pay for awnings with signage? Because it tends to be that we pay for an awning that goes away when the business goes away. We want to pay for awnings that stay when the business goes away. And if it doesn't have signage, that awning will remain. Debt service. So we can't pay for any loan fees or your refinancing or anything like that. Resurfacing of parking lots or replacement of private sidewalks. That's general maintenance. Architectural design fees or village fees. So basically the administrative type costs. We're trying to fund brick and mortar first. So I talked a little bit about percentages, and there's basically a base percentage that we're willing to fund, and then we have what we call incentive bonuses. And what are the incentive bonuses? Those are, how do we get a better project when we're contributing funds? So I did a really simple example that I have here. So if someone was doing facade improvements, and we're going to call the facade improvements, in our downtown, someone wants to put in new windows, and their cost is $10,000. And they approach us and say, we would like a grant to help pay for those new windows. Well, they're pretty basic at $10,000. We can fund that, but only at 20%. So out of that $10,000, we're willing to give you a grant for 2. Would you like more money? Well, can we get a better product? So if we get windows that are architecturally sensitive to the building or have some nicer details, nicer features, or even something like roll-up windows that interact the business with the sidewalk, or those sliding door windows, that I can qualify as an incentive bonus. When you look at the incentive bonuses in this red-pink section, I've got 3 incentive bonuses for facade improvements. I've got exterior lighting, brick and stone, and architectural detailing. Well, this isn't lighting, it's not brick and stone, but I can qualify it under architectural detailing. So if you're willing to do nicer windows, I can add 15%. So let's say those windows are going to cost you more. So let's say they're going to cost you $15,000, not 10, but I can pay for 35% of those by the village. So $15,000 windows can be installed. They can get a $5,250 grant. So their out-of-pocket went from $8,000 out-of-pocket to $9,750 out-of-pocket. So for an additional $1,750 out-of-pocket, you can have some wonderful roll-up windows that activate your business to the sidewalk. Do you want to go one step further? Well, I've got incentives for lighting and brick and stone. Might be a stretch for me to convince someone that comes in for windows to add brick and stone to the front of their building, but it's real easy for me to say, well, what if you added some nice gooseneck lighting that washed the front surface of your building with some nice lighting? That might add $3,000 to your project, so now you're looking at an $18,000 project, but now I can fund 40%. So we're getting real close to that 50% number. So now I can pay $7,200 of that, and your out-of-pocket is $10,800. So we're trying to design people to think more comprehensively about their project and shoot for a better project to get more money. The other thing is, I told you we might have to score these if it's competitive. Every time you add an incentive to what you're doing, you get greater bonus points. So those projects that come in and they're doing basic windows and they say, we don't want to do anything more than basic, they're going to score lower than someone that comes in and says, well, no, I'll do the nice windows and I'll do the lighting. And that helps the board direct where the funding goes. So some program administration, so budget and funding cycles. So as I alluded to, and we're going to do that tonight in the second ordinance, I'm going to cover it in this presentation, although it's not on the table yet. Basically, a budget for each tier. So each tier should have a pot of funds that are dedicated. You have the ability to modify the funding percentages and incentive bonuses. So every year, if we're unhappy with the way the program worked last year, or we decide we want to target, we can modify that annually. So we're customating and creating targets for that funding. The application cycle, we would like a two-round application cycle. And what I mean by that is, soon as the budget is adopted, we get a new pool of funds. So we would publish the application, we would publish the scoring methodology, and we would take in those applications so we can look at them all together, because when we look at them all together, that's how we can rank them or score them. We could only hope that that first cycle uses every penny. When it doesn't, we need a mechanism to basically go back and have a second cycle. So close to the end of the budget, we'll know how much money is left, and then we'll repost an application cycle. So that way, our goal should be that we spend every dime out of this every year. Historically, there's always been money left over because it has not been a program that was easy to work with. We want to make this easy, and we want to make it available, and we want to spend it down. Approval procedures. So if it's something that I'm going to say is simple, so something simple is usually interior remodeling or minor exterior. In those cases, they would start with staff review. We would run it by the Economic Development Partnership for concurrence with our scoring methodology and that it meets the minimum standards, and then we would bring it to the board. When it has design, so usually then you're on the exterior, and it's something that I'm going to call major design, that always has to go through planning and zoning, because usually it's a site plan approval process. So in those cases, the Planning and Zoning is a competent commission that knows the design guidelines. They will be evaluating the design of the project exclusively. So they will be scrutinizing it for, does it meet the intent of what we want in the downtown? They are not rendering a recommendation on the grant itself. They are looking at the design. So then, after Planning and Zoning, it would come to the board. So you would not only be approving the site and landscape approval plan, but there would be a grant tagged to it. So basically, the design would be scrutinized, and staff would give all the information needed for the grant to say that the Planning and Zoning made a positive recommendation, and now it's time to consider the grant with it. And as always, scored when competitive, and just for the ability so we can understand how we see scoring, I gave a little sample for this Tier 1 on how we would score. We would want to publish our scoring methodology in the application every year, which means we can also tailor our scoring. So basically, when the applications go out, the people that want to apply know how best to score. How often can someone apply? Every 3 years. There's always an exception. We think that when these funds are here, we will have people that want to phase projects or do reinvestment. So if there are excess funds, someone can still apply if it's less than 3 years, and the board can consider that project. Primary funding still goes to those that haven't had one in 3 years, but it gives availability. Once again, it gives us the opportunity to spend down those funds when no other projects are coming before us. We expect that the projects, once they get approval, would be started within 3 months and completed within 1 year. They can't ask for extensions to the community development director. If they disagree with the community development director, they can appeal that to the board. So there are times when it's either an elaborate project or it gets stalled in permitting or stalled somewhere else. They can ask to extend that. This is a grant program, so there is no repayment expected. We did discuss when we were getting into some of the high dollar amounts, well, should we demand repayment? Should we lien the property? And looking at the other ways that the communities do it, there's really no effective way for us to be the bill collector. If a business left town, it's hard to chase after them and say, give us our money back. That is why we're trying to fund first brick and mortar. If that business leaves, typically the improvements will stay. However, we think when we get into a Tier 3, which is talking about grants of up to $100,000, we want a little more insurance. And basically we say, if we're going to give you more than 50, so between 50 and 100, you at least have to commit that all the improvements we're helping fund will stay for at least 3 years. So basically, if we help fund a restaurant and we help fund some of the equipment, we expect that to stay for at least 3 years. If you don't, we're not going to come after you with the bill. What we are going to do is we're going to say that property can't reapply for a longer term, 5 years. So basically, that is our simplest way to benefit the business and the community without becoming bill collectors when something fails. And ultimately, we're funding the brick and mortar that should stay. So I'm going to talk briefly on what we're adopting in the second ordinance, and this is basically what we're adopting for the first year. So there were $100,000 already committed in this year's budget. So we've got that $100,000 to fund. We want to start simple and take baby steps. We think that we should only be funding Tier 1, that's what staff is recommending. So basically, those 4 fundable activities: facade improvements, signage, ADA, and fire life safety. Maximum grant amounts of $20,000. So if you do your math, if we got several grants and they all maxed out at $20,000, that's 5 grants. If they're much lesser amounts, you know, we might have 15 grants that go out. We are starting late, so we're already in the fiscal year 24 budget cycle. So we don't want to do the two-cycle system that we will do in other years, because we're already past the adoption of the budget, and we need a little time to get up to speed. We need to put out some marketing and get the word out so that people know that that grant's out there. We also feel that because it's one cycle, we would be ongoing until the funds are depleted. So whereas in the second year, we anticipate that shortly after we get all the applications, the board would see several grants come on one night. It is likely that you will see a grant here and a grant there until the funds are gone. And then, based on discussion at the CDC, we did put the previous facade and life safety grant on hold for 3 years. So we felt it was important that if funds remain out of that 100,000, and we set that to March 1st of 2024. So basically, up until March 1st, we want to fund new projects. But if there is funding left on March 1st, we can fund past projects that were done between May of 2020 and the adoption of this tonight. However, we're not going to give the $20,000 amounts. What we will do is we will consider the previous amounts of $5,000 and $3,000, provided the project still meets our new standards. So if we could have funded it, we will fund it. And that is only if funds remain. So I covered as much as I could without going into too much detail, and I am here for questions now.
Do you, a business comes in and they're not the property owner, you have to have sign off from the property owner as far as the facade or any brick and
Yes,
mortar?
all the applications would require the signature of the property owner, in addition to if it was the business that was trying.
That's true for a permit
Yes.
as well, so, yeah.
Yes,
How will the
Trustee Brady.
businesses find out about this? Is it going to be, are they going to be notified individually, or? how-
Well, we haven't sat down yet to figure that out. I'll work with Larry Forsberg very closely after this meeting, assuming this goes forward. We first want to put together some marketing materials so that people understand. If you heard me, I said, planned projects score higher. So people need a little time to say, well, how am I going to plan my project? So I would anticipate that we will probably take at least a month to put our materials together and start marketing it. And I think in my document, I said we anticipate that the applications would go live probably around September 15th. So we're going to take between now and September 15th to get the word out.
Joe, any project that starts from now on and doesn't have our permission or review, are they still eligible to come back and request funds?
That is an excellent question. So you're asking between tonight and September 15th. I believe that there's enough flexibility here that we could consider that a current current project, and they would be eligible. Attorney Zemanek can correct me if I'm incorrect.
You can interpret it that way and process pending applications.
But you can even do that a year from now. If someone starts a project and then comes and applies, we can still fund it if they meet our criteria.
Explain to me what you mean from a
A year from now, someone starts a project, but not coming to us, but then comes to us after they started and look for funding.
Right now, that's not the way it's written. So what we've done is in the current year, so not in the adopting program, in the current year, which is where I'm modifying everything, that is where we gave the exception to past or current projects. Basically, so after this year, we could write something into next year's, similar to that if that's the direction of the board. I think that we're trying to accommodate, right now, we're trying to accommodate the fact that we put a grant program on hold and people made investment, and should there be some of those funds available. Good. I think once this starts moving forward, we probably want us to be more systematic of following the regimented process so that we are fair when we're dispersing the funds. Now, it may not seem like $100,000 in a lot of small grants being fair is top priority, but if we get to a place where We have Tier 3, which can have up to $100,000, and the board says, this year, we only want to fund $100,000 in Tier 3, which means we're willing to fund one gigantic project. That's where the competitiveness comes in, and that's where I wouldn't want to keep the door open for other projects that already started.
Oh, that's good.
Two points I'd like to make. You know, the committee, and I'm not patting ourselves on the back, but there's some people on that committee that did some great work, and Joe is one of them. I think this is a definite asset to the community, and hopefully people will embrace it and take advantage of it and use the money that's become available and make some improvements that we all want. And then the second thing, because it came up at 2 times tonight already before the meeting, one with Trustee Brady was asking about EV stations, and the other consideration that I had was dark skies, and it crossed the manager's mind as well for dark skies lighting. And I'm wondering if in Tier 1, the direction the village is going, and what I believe is all good environmentally, because they've supported the environmental committee, and the stuff that I've asked for, everybody sees value in it. If there was a category for environmental improvements in Tier 1, could we fund things like EV stations and/or dark sky lighting? And I know that even if it's not written in there, you're going to look for it because you've paid attention to what we've talked about as an environmental group, and I know the board's going to look for it too. So it doesn't have to be written in there, but I would say if it was in there, it might help. And we've got that grant program that I just spoke about in our before the board when we had our announcements, but that's for residents and businesses alike. But then this would make it even a higher priority, and there's some things there that would add value to the community if it's
Or an extra, like you had the add-on incentive percentages, is there an opportunity for that?
Right. So if it fits into that Tier 1, and we can identify some of the projects that would be acceptable in that tier, I'd like to see if we could do that.
So I'll give a couple of my thoughts on that. The way it's written that's before you tonight with Tier 1, the only exterior improvements that it can fund are facade improvements. So if the lighting was part of the facade, then we could consider it. Now, we have not published the scoring for that application yet, so we could score the dark sky lighting higher. That's if it was part of the facade project. The EV stations are more of a parking lot improvement. Those we don't get into until Tier 2 and Tier 3. The only caution I give on that is right now, we don't have standards. Is right now, part of the zoning ordinance update is trying to address solar, wind turbines, dark skies, EV stations. So if you are asking for my recommendation, I would say absolutely this is something we should target, but first, let's get some standards in writing.
I agree, Joe.
So that, what I'm hearing is that next year, let's make sure we have those in place and that make sure we integrate those.
Great.
But in the short term for this year, I can at least put a higher score on it. So we're encouraging lighting on the front facades of buildings.
Right.
I can at least, in the bonus incentives, give additional points for if it is dark sky compliant. But right now, I don't have the rules and regulations of what dark sky compliant is in terms of the building lighting.
Yeah, fine, thank you.
My question is, when you explain about the business moving out, can you go back to that slide real quick? You said that if they leave, we can't go after them for the money, but we can withhold 5 years worth of the property going back into it?
What we can do is we can hold the property from reapplying for the grant for 5 years. So typically, it's a 3-year window. Every 3 years you can apply, although we do give exception that if it's a great project and we have money left over, we may fund things in every year if we feel it's warranted and the money is there. In this case, we'd say, no, you're penalized. You can't come back to us for 5 years. But I think that's also with the idea that Tier 3, we are funding up to $100,000. So that project is at least a $200,000 investment in the brick and mortar of that project. Although we can fund some things like signage, some restaurant equipment, and some business equipment, there are limitations that it has to remain with the property. So if that business leaves, of that $100,000 investment we put in, most of that will still be there, because we're trying to fund brick and mortar first.
So then the building or the project
So-
itself cannot reapply under a new
The
management?
building itself can't reapply again. So if they so if we fund and we move in a new restaurant, and 2 years in, they say we're gone, and an office wants to come and use the space, say, I want to tear everything of the restaurant out. We'll say, well, wait a minute, you obligated that all those improvements were supposed to stay for at least 3. You're removing those. This is the point of violation. Not only should you not remove those, but we won't help fund anything for you for 5 years. It was very difficult to get into a system of trying to lien property, lien equipment. If the business left, do we penalize the property owner because trying to chase the business down for the excess funds? It became very difficult. So that's why the program is deliberately trying to fund things that can't be taken away.
And currently, do we have, I mean, is it written or unwritten with a grant program? It was 10 years? I vaguely remember if a business it was 10 years until they could apply again? I don't know. Maybe it was unwritten.
Do you mean on the old program?
Yeah.
I believe it was every 3 years.
3 years,
that they could
okay.
reapply.
So to the same point and the same goal, the person that applied for it and did the big investment, if they're leaving, it's not a disincentive because they could care less if, what happens to the next person. It's their penalty. So it's still not a disincentive. So I don't know if it's a good idea, but I was just thinking, so if you've got something, you're talking about Tier 3, and you're talking about big investments and big return, they're already have a big investment in the property. Is it worth considering, like you would do, a TIF agreement or a tax sharing agreement, is that you get no more than $20,000 a year, and then that way, if you don't make it 3 years, we didn't lose that benefit. I don't know if that is useful or not, but.
Well, what I will say is, we're not proposing to fund Tier 3 yet. We may be 2 or 3 or 4 years away before we get to that point. We have time to refine that. You mentioned TIF. I would anticipate that a project that's getting Tier 3 funding might also be asking for TIF, which is a different pot of money, and perhaps we can write into that TIF agreement. If it's not TIF, I don't know if we can do a similar agreement. So basically, rather than saying you can't come back in 5 years, can we have a side agreement with that business that, ends the rebate or modifies the terms? Those are all absolutely valid. And this is where I say we're taking baby steps. When we get to Tier 3, I hope that we have Tiers 1 and 2 under our belt and well-oiled by the time we get to the
Even
Tier
your
3.
baby steps are big and comprehensive, so it's a good work.
Done. Thank you. Do you place them in the tier, of course, they want to go to Tier 3, but do we tell them what tier they should be in?
No, they apply for what they feel. So if they have a really high dollar project and they could apply for Tier 3, maybe they know they're not going to hit any of the incentive bonuses because they don't want to, but maybe they'll qualify better under a different tier. We don't necessarily direct them.
A couple comments I have is, as you're developing the marketing materials and working with communications, I think it's super important, and I mentioned this before, is we got to remember to keep it simple. I mean, I think that's crucial in making this successful. If we send someone a stack of papers on how to fill out this, they're not going to do it, right? Or not be inclined to. So I would hopefully, let's have that in our head to really make it easy on these businesses to take advantage of this. And to go a step further is I've seen these programs before where they advertise them and it says just contact community development at so-and-so. I think we need to do a direct person contact. Reach out to Joe or reach out to X or Y, so they actually have somebody they can email and call, rather than just the general number. I think that would help us get a little more success, because, I mean, think about it, someone that doesn't do this all the time is gonna read this application, they're gonna get questions right away. It's just so much easier to call someone or email the questions, I think. So hopefully we have someone we could use for that. And then my other comment or question is what happens, let's assume and hope that this is really successful, and the funds get eaten up pretty quick. Let's say by November, we got all our projects, they're funded and great, but come December, there's a great projects that's presented to staff. Is the message to them, hey, you got to wait till next year? Or is there a way where we can maybe discuss it rather than waiting to hold the project back, to kind of maybe add more funds to it? Or, because you'd hate to see a project delayed because of a program where it's something that maybe we want in the downtown. So is there flexibility for that?
There is a line in there in the program manual that we put together that says basically the board can elect to fund what they
So
want.
we won't turn
when they
anybody
want.
away?
Well, I would assume we'd follow a procedure where, hey, we've been approached for this project, they want to move. And then probably there need to be discussions, and is there money in the budget? And then is that discussed at committee first, or does that go right to the board? But there is that flexibility in there.
That's great.
So if you see the pot of money, it's a wonderfully successful project, and we say, listen, we got 40 applications and we're only funding 5.
Great, yeah.
I don't know how we can move the budget or find the money in the budget, but I assume we have a procedure for finding the money in the budget, so.
You know, and then to add to that, Steve, in the discovery process, they found that, you know, all these other communities that are, you know, very successful in their economic development are throwing a lot of money into that program. So we're starting down here where we can handle it. It's still more than we've ever spent. And hopefully it grows, and hopefully there's, you know, a tremendous change in, you know, the CBD, and it's effective. That's what you want, a great program that everybody wants to get, you know, be part of. It's Larry's dream, I think.
Yeah. But you just hate to slow it down. I mean, we could afford it, right? So
That's
if there's
right.
something,
That's right.
I'm glad to hear that we could maybe consider it. I think that's great. I hope it's wildly successful, and Spencer has to scratch his head on how to figure it out, but.
I mean, it's always whatever else you want to cut instead.
Yeah.
Right, so, yeah, you know, if it's, we dig into savings more if we want to do some new project, or we cut something else, or we increase revenues and taxes. So it's whatever the board wants to do when we come to, this isn't in the budget, those are the 3 things we do, right? So we'll just evaluate it then.
I hope the community takes full advantage of it. This is great.
And I hear what you're saying, keep it simple, I want to keep it simple. Here, I don't have to keep it so simple, but out there I do. I know that the current interim director has indicated that he feels that he is the point person, so when you say one person, now obviously when we get a new director, we'll see if that lives with the director, or if it comes down to me or to someone else.
That's
But
so helpful. People appreciate that.
We understand that it's kind of more of an ambassador type thing.
Exactly. Yep.
Marie's got a question.
Okay, I'm putting on my Main Street hat. Way back when, I was part of the design committee. The Main Street guidelines were mine. The facade renovation program came out of my committee. And I got to tell you, it makes me feel really good that we're going down this path, and we're adding some robust, not only guidelines to it, but we're making it so that eventually more and more people will be able to take advantage of it. I appreciate that we're using the Main Street guidelines. That was always a big thing. Way back when you were part of the Main Street organization, there was a state architect, and that's basically what they did. And their job was to do historic preservation. Things that were done had to fall within certain guidelines, so you would protect what you had in your downtown that was of historic significance. So I'm really glad to see that we're doing that. I'm also really happy that we're using and choosing to use the original Main Street boundaries that were set up in 1995, 1996. I think that's really important because we put a lot of planning into that when we were starting to get this program off the ground years ago. So I'm really glad that we're doing that. And then another thing that was always brought up way back when was the rear entries. The rear entries were very important because that was another ingress and egress. And if you made the back entrances look good or you made them accessible, you'd have more foot traffic coming down. And I just want to thank the committee, I want to thank the board, I want to just, I'm glad to see that we're bringing it back. Not that it was ever really gone, but we're bringing it back with the new vigor, and I'm hoping that there's going to be a lot of businesses that are going to take advantage of it.
Does the chair of P&Z have any comments? Was he on the committee?
He was on the committee. Oh, I didn't realize he was here. Would you?
Not getting it yet. Any other? Seeing none, then I need a motion to approve the ordinance that is going to create the downtown incentive program.
Motion to approve Guzzo.
Second, Brady.
Motion made, second. Additional questions? Roll call, please.
Trustee Guzzo.
Yes.
Trustee Barker.
Yes.
Trustee Nero.
Yes.
Trustee Brady.
Yes.
Trustee Little.
Yes.
Motion passes. And we'll move on to the second item, Downtown Incentive Program, fiscal year 2024 annual budget and activity targets. Board to consider ordinance adopting the fiscal year 2024 Downtown Incentive Program annual budget and activity targets. And Deputy Director Hennerfein is still at that podium.
Okay, so I did discuss this in my presentation. Quick summary, there's $100,000 already in the budget. We're looking at Tier 1, which is a $20,000 maximum grant. We could see as many or as few as 5 grants, or maybe up to 15 would be my anticipation. It would be ongoing, so as soon as we got the applications out, and sometime in about a month and a half, the board could start seeing those. If there's funds left over, we've created some exceptions for those past projects, but we're not going to consider spending any money on those until March, because we want new projects to take priority. If you have any questions, I can answer those.
I think you answered them before. The only question I forgot to ask is, do you give any bonus points for using Westmont business contractors, or?
We do not. Is that something
I'm just thinking,
we can, when we start putting together our bonus table, we can consider that.
Okay. Seeing no other comments, I need a motion to adopt that fiscal year 2024 downtown incentive program.
Motion to approve Barker.
Second, Nero.
Motion made, second. Any additional roll call, please?
Trustee Barker.
Yes.
Trustee Guzzo.
Yes.
Trustee Nero.
Yes.
Trustee Brady.
Yes.
Trustee Little.
Yes.
Motion passes, and again, I think it was said, your committee did tremendous work, and I know I've talked to Bruce and Marie, fabulous, and everybody has served on it. I know Doug's sitting there, our P&Z, but and you had another P&Z member who assisted, but this is a great program, so.
Wanted to just add one other point, and it's not for tonight, but as you're thinking about the next years of the program too, just keep in mind that we're
switch over.
Formulating the transition between a fiscal year and a calendar year, so we'll be working on an 8 and a 12 simultaneously this fall.
Yes. So there, we may have altered cycles because of this changeover as well.
Yeah. Just be aware. Thank you.
Again, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. New business C, award a bid proposal, 13 to 19 East Burlington and 21 East Burlington building demolition. Board to consider ordinance awarding the bid proposal from Fowler Enterprises LLC for the demolition of the buildings located at 13 to 19 East Burlington and 21 East Burlington, and authorizing a contract consistent with the bid documents. Public Workers Director Reese.
This is for the demolition of the buildings associated with the One North Cass property. It is the strip mall building and the Haraldson's Garage. The village has recently acquired this property, and the buildings will be scheduled for demolition after this bid is approved. So we received 5 bid proposals. Fowler Enterprises LLC was the low bid in the amount of $144,950. We've never worked with this contractor before, so we did a reference check on them, and the references were satisfactory. So the project will include the demolition of those 2 buildings, asbestos abatement, security fencing, backfill and landscape restoration, as well as removal of the sanitary and water services and abandoning those. So we recommend the award of the bid of $144,950 to Fowler Enterprises LLC.
I have a motion.
Motion to approve, Little?
Second, Nero.
Motion been made and second to approve. Comments?
Just one really quick. Do they have any idea how long this is going to take?
It usually goes pretty quick once they start, so probably a couple of weeks.
Okay.
I hear there's a lot of good things in Harrelson's garage.
Yeah, it's really neat, actually. So you could like move it somewhere and make like a cool apartment out of it. So.
Seeing no other questions, it's roll call. Roll call, please.
Trustee Little.
Yes.
Trustee Brady.
Yes.
Trustee Barker.
Yes.
Trustee Guzzo.
Yes.
Trustee Nero.
Yes.
I keep wanting to call Simonovich and stuff.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
New business D, intergovernmental agreement, mutual aid box alarm system. Board to consider an ordinance approving a revised intergovernmental agreement for participation in the mutual aid alarm box system. Chief Riley.
Thank you, Mayor. MABUS is a multi-state organization that coordinates mutual aid responses to emergencies and disasters that require significant deployment of resources. MABUS's participants have updated their master agreement, which its members approve. This is an agreement that Mother MABUS comes before us every 10 years, so this will be good for 10 years.
Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve Guzzo?
Brady, second.
Motion made second. Any additional comments or questions? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Guzzo.
Yes.
Trustee Barker.
Yes.
Trustee Nero.
Yes.
Trustee Brady.
Yes.
Trustee Little.
Yes.
Motion passes. We'll move on to new business E, repeal of the municipal code section 82-101, private lead water service line, replacement lead. Oh, I thought lead. Board.
The same word.
Yeah, no,
but yes.
board to consider an ordinance repealing municipal code section 82-101, private lead water service line replacement. Director Reed.
So we discussed this at the last Public Works Committee meeting, kind of explaining a change in the EPA's stance on moving some of these services. They will not grant us an operating permit unless we commit in writing to removing them. The municipal code currently requires a cost share from the private side replacement, and we're requesting to repeal this to allow us flexibility to replace these in order to get operating permits.
Do I have a motion to approve the ordinance?
Motion to approve Barker.
Second, Little?
Motion made and second. Any additional comments?
I'm sorry, who made the first? You, okay, thanks, Bruce. All right.
Seeing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Barker.
Yes.
Trustee Guzzo.
Yes.
Trustee Nero.
Yes.
Trustee Brady.
Yes.
Trustee Little.
Yes.
Motion passes. We'll move on. Miscellaneous. Anybody have anything?
Just a quick comment, Mayor. I wanted to thank our Public Works Director and Manager May. They pivoted really fast this week for a potential stormwater grant. They don't have any specifics yet, but they turned around a pretty quick application in a matter of minutes, and I appreciate it, so.
Where's that grant up for?
It's potentially in Oakwood, so we'll see. It's a stormwater
That
project there.
outfall that we covered at
Yes.
a previous committee, yeah.
Yep.
Good, that's great.
But yeah, thank you, Amy. It's good stuff.
Seeing no other miscellaneous, I do need a motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss pending litigation for TJ Real Estate LLC versus Westmont and OSHA versus Westmont pursuant to Section 2C11 of the Open Meetings Act. Do I have a motion to adjourn to executive session for those reasons?
Motion to adjourn for those reasons.
Brady, second.
Nero.
Motion made and second. Roll call, please.
Trustee Nero.
Yes.
Trustee Guzzo.
Yes.
Trustee Barker.
Yes.
Trustee Little.
Yes.
Trustee Brady.
Yes.
We will adjourn to executive session, come back and conclude the meeting. There will not be any further business at that time. So again, thank you for all attending.